Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Biden Republicans rally. Tonight, we actually have a different speaker. We have welcomed the iconic Ken Bone to this rally. He's not here to promote anything or endorse anyone. He's just here for the fun political conversation. Obviously, he was a big staple in the 2016 election, and we wanted to welcome him here just to talk about all the ups and downs of the last year and just kind of what his thoughts are on it. So welcome, Ken.
Happy to be here. Slightly surprised to get invited to do the Biden Republicans rally, despite not being a Republican and not liking Joe Biden very much.
You know, that's why you were an ideal fit. I think we just thought you have a lot of great insights to offer from, someone who says it like it is. I genuinely, just rewatching all of your interviews, it's been fun just remembering, you really are so representative of the majority of America. And I would say that Reed and I, we're Republicans, we have conservative values, but we definitely, we have our issues with Biden. We obviously have our issues with the Republican Party. But we think that a vote for Biden is the right decision in this election. But let's just start out by talking about kind of how you got your start, just that whole story. I'm sure you've had to tell it 1,000 times, but what it was like being, becoming a real life meme in the 2016 election.
Well, I was at the second presidential debate in 2016, the one that would be coming up here very soon, which may or may not happen with Trump's COVID diagnosis. It might not be safe to have that debate. They might have to have it via Zoom or something, which would be great, because then the moderator could mute Donald Trump instead of letting him talk over the proceedings and make a giant farce out of the whole thing. Since this is the Biden supporting Biden Republicans podcast, I will say that was pretty good from Biden. He did a good job of not sinking to Donald Trump's level, which is really, I think that's kind of what the Biden Republicans are looking for at this point, right? Somebody who will be like not Trump. That's a big selling point. Somebody who's not going to act like him, somebody who's not going to put out that kind of steaming rhetoric. Well, anyway, I was at that debate, and I happened to be wearing an outfit that was very colorful on television. Everybody else was wearing very muted, somber colors that befitted the gravity of the situation they were in, the seriousness. And I was wearing a bright red sweater because it was a nice sweater. I liked it a lot. And so everybody thought that was neat. I also just had like the mustache at the time. I'm kind of a goofy looking dude. I know that. I've known that since I was a teenager. And everybody kind of gravitated towards that. So I was trending on Twitter before anybody even knew what my name was. I was like hashtag red sweater guy. And then near the end of the debate, they call on me to ask my question, which I wrote, which was about energy policy. Mm-hmm. And Anderson Cooper said, now we have Ken Bone with a question. People are like, there's no way that's a real name. 100% is my real name. It was named after my grandfather, the original Ken Bone. So that was even more ridiculous. I have a goofy, weird name. And then I asked my question, which I thought was a somewhat thoughtful question.
It was.
And happened to be the only one that had anything to do with either energy policy or the environment for the entire debate cycle in 2016. So even more people gravitated onto that. And then the next day when I was on television recounting the story, kind of like I am for you now, I was willing to tell the story about why'd you wear that sweater? Well, because I got too fat for the nice muted color suit I was going to wear. And I tore the seat out of the pants when I was trying to drive to the debate. So people thought, well, this guy, he's somewhat articulate, at least a little bit. He had an interesting question. He's got a weird name. He looks funny. And he acknowledges that he has a weird name and looks funny. He's willing to make fun of himself. He's kind of fun. So people just kept calling me for interviews over and over and over and over again. The only reason I'm still like at all in the public eye is just because I'm willing to do it. I think it's kind of fun. That's the reason you don't see Chewbacca Mom anymore, is because I don't think she thought it was very fun. Yeah, I kind of do. So here I am.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. You certainly, I was so excited when you DM'd me and said, sure, I'll do it. I'm not going to endorse anyone, but certainly you were one of my favorite characters in the 2016 election. And your question was a great question. And, like I said, And I just rewatched your interview with Bill Maher, I think from a few years ago, where you said, he said, no, you are the voter that everyone's trying to get. It really comes down to that. And so there is something, to that I think pulls people in. And I think the red sweater was everything. I have to tell you something. Reed, who's in the corner there, was wearing a red sweater when we first opened up, and he didn't even realize it. I told him, I said, keep it on. It's just perfect for tonight, but he didn't want to upstage you in case you wore it.
Well, you can wear it if you want to, because I'm not gonna. I'm not a cartoon character. I actually wear different clothes every day. It's amazing.
Love it.
I only wear that red sweater if it's for like charity or for something that I basically can't wiggle my way out of it. I actually hate wearing it a lot. I don't have the original one anymore. I have a cheap knockoff, and I do not like putting it on.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. Well, okay. So I'm curious, going on kind of the theme of you are the voter to get, I'm curious if there's been an election in your lifetime where you have felt more assured of a candidate, if there was ever anyone that you were from the start, you were on board with, or even a party that you aligned with more at some point, or has this been more in recent years where you kind of have gotten to a place of, skepticism, understandable skepticism because of just what politics has devolved into?
Well, I've never really been a candidate flag waving, hat wearing, place a sign in my yard kind of guy. Yeah. The only time in my adult life that I've ever really pushed for a candidate or endorsed one was just recently. I endorsed Andrew Yang. I like Andrew Yang very much, and I believe in him a great deal. And hopefully, to me, he is the future of the Democrat Party, because that's how the Democrats are going to kind of rise from the ashes of what both the major parties have become. I don't just want to dump on Democrats here. Because the two-party system in itself is ridiculous. We got in this situation, and you guys had to be part of the organization you're a part of, because the Republican Party no longer stands for you and your traditional conservative values. They no longer stand for small, responsible government. Well, similarly, the Democrats, who are supposed to be the party of the working person and the Progressive Party, they're not progressive. They don't champion any policies that really do anything for the people. You have two parties that are owned by gigantic corporations, except it's one type of corporations owns the Republicans and a different type of corporations owns the Democrats. It's the only real war is between like the banking industry and the pharmaceutical industry. So, it's, I never really get into getting behind a single candidate that much. Of course, when I was 18, my first presidential election ever, I was excited, and I was like, oh, yay, I'm going to get to vote for George W. Bush. And then I thought about it a little bit, and I'm like, would I even know who this guy is if his dad hadn't have been president? Probably not. So even then, at 18, I was already a little bit jaded. Yeah,
that's totally fair. That was actually I had just missed the deadline to vote for that one. And then for that was for the first one?
That was the first one for me. I turned 18 when it was Bush versus Gore. Yes, because that was 20 years ago. I just turned 38 a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So I turned 18 just in time for the registration deadline of the 2000 election.
Yeah, that was most of my classmates but for his second term, and I just missed the line, so I had to wait until McCain, right? Yeah, the next round. But okay. So then, as the kind of voter you are, what issues are important to you, and kind of what has stood out? Has there been anything on either side that you've kind of been like, wow, they really got that right, or good things, bad things? What are the issues that matter most to you?
Well, I'm just a little bit too old now to ever have to worry about being drafted. I'm 38 years old. Right. But my son is going to turn 17 in about 3 weeks. Wow. And he is very close to the age where if we were in a major conflict, he could be called upon to serve. Yeah. Or he still has thoughts deciding what he wants to do with his future. One of his options that he talks about is joining the Marine Corps. So obviously near and dear to my heart is these ridiculous regime change conflicts that we seem to love so much, sending our blood and treasure overseas to go and secure deals for giant corporations, to secure resources for people who don't care about us, and to do essentially nothing for the American people except open up new places where our jobs and our livelihoods can be outsourced to and ruin the lives of a whole bunch of people in foreign countries. So yeah, not really a big fan of that. It impacts me personally. It also kind of offends me that my country, our leadership wants to play world police when we, the people, say we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I'm also very concerned about the state of healthcare. Not necessarily for me. I'm one of the lucky ones. I have a very secure job. I work in the energy sector.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, that's why I asked about energy policy.
Yep. I remember, yeah.
But I have good health insurance that my family is taken care of. But my grandmother, she's on Medicaid. And my father, he is disabled and had to retire at a relatively young age. And he is on Medicaid. The amount of taxes that we pay already and the amount that they pay for their health care and seeing the quality of care that they receive really concerns me.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to expand this program, we should expand it, but we also need to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
About a quarter of my grandmother's income goes right back into healthcare. Well, her income is Social Security. So she's getting money from the government so she can pay it back to the government to get healthcare. It's a ridiculously inefficient system.
Yeah.
So that concerns me a great deal. And then apart from that, it's largely energy policy. I work in fossil fuels. I do not speak for my company, by the way. I have to say that anytime I talk about energy policy. But we will not, for the rest of time, be digging stuff up out of the ground and setting it on fire to make energy. It's not a concept that is sustainable for the next 500 years. At some point, we won't do that anymore. There'll be some technology that takes it over. How do we transition to that new technology in a responsible way that doesn't impoverish people for generations? We've seen what happened to Detroit, a very large metropolitan area, when they became economically depressed after the auto industry crash. It still has not recovered fully.
Mm-hmm.
The whole state of Michigan is really hurting. Without the auto crash, you wouldn't have dirty water in Flint, Michigan. I can tell you that. You'd have better, more responsible, better funded local government. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do to a lot of small communities that will get overlooked, that won't get the attention that Detroit will do if we fold up a whole bunch of power plants and just throw them away with no responsible plan in place for what to do with them after.
Yeah.
We'll also have rolling blackouts like they do in Southern California.
Yeah.
The richest, most prosperous nation in the history of the earth, and one of the most prosperous areas in that nation, and they have to turn the electricity off like it was a war zone. That's just baffling to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's pretty wild. So I'm curious then, are you, back to your first answer, are you a fan of Tulsi Gabbard then with the more of the isolationist approach?
I do like Tulsi Gabbard very much. Yeah. I think one of the most shameful things we've seen in the last year or two of an already shameful election cycle was seeing an American war hero smeared as a Russian asset by a tired old person desperately clinging to what little power and influence she has left. I know a little something about desperately clinging to influence. I know it when I see it, Hillary. Now watch out for when I accidentally commit suicide by shooting myself in the back of the head 3 times after having said that.
So with the so then the energy policy, would you say that are there any plans that you see now that you feel are, kind of start to hit the nail on the head there? Are you pro nuclear energy, or is there a party that seems to stand out? How do you feel about the Green New Deal, kind of all of that?
I like nuclear energy very much, especially newer generations of nuclear energy, like thorium reactors or molten salt reactors. Much, much, much more difficult to weaponize. If I was the emperor of America and we had to make a new Iran deal, which we're going to have to make some kind of deal with them. We can't just let them do whatever they want, which is what backing out of the deal did. That's just kind of left them to their own devices. A bad deal is better than no deal in my book, but what do I know? I'm just some guy in Southern Illinois. But we have no deal with them now. If I was the king, I would jump in and say, yeah, absolutely. Foreign, possibly hostile power. You want nuclear energy? We want to help you modernize your energy infrastructure. How about we lease you these designs for a thorium or a molten salt reactor very, very cheaply? And oh, by the way, it's impossible or next to impossible for you to make weapons out of them. And if you say no, then that automatically tells us like, oh, well, you just wanted to make weapons out of them, didn't you? And if they say yes, then everybody wins. Then those people who generally are very poor and have very little opportunity, who live in hostile nations like that, they get more energy, they get more opportunity, we get minimal environmental impact, and we also get seen as a deal maker rather than an oppressor.
So is there any party or candidate that you would even think would align with that sort of mentality at all?
I don't know.
Or in Congress, anyone that sticks out?
I've read the Biden plan pretty extensively,
yeah,
which is, it's kind of tough to do because so much of it is copy and pasted from the just the Democrat party platform. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's not like necessarily a horrible thing, and then expect him to his people to write everything from scratch when they're kind of on the party line. Yeah. I like that plan a little better. I would like to see more detail. I know you don't post 300-page documents on energy policy on your campaign website because only industry insiders like me and my other energy nerd friends would really know what it was. But we'd like to see more detail in those plans rather than a nebulous like, oh, we're going to retrain power plant workers like Ken to install solar panels. And then leave me thinking like, well, what about once all the solar panels are installed? Then what do? I just go pound sand? And oh, by the way, that job's a lot more dangerous and pays like half as much as what I currently make. That's not a very good plan. Nobody's listening to me anymore. Oh, it's because that's it. That's all it says. So yeah, I would like to see some more detail. I think there's the groundwork of a decent plan in there, but it's very hard when politicians run for 2 and 4 year terms to get them to commit to a 20-year plan.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Well, so what kind of has there been anything from either campaign that stood out to you as positive that you liked, that something that pulled you in and made you consider voting for them?
Well, I'll consider voting for anybody. There are about 1,700 presidential candidates right now. That is not an exaggeration, and it's not a joke. That's how many people are legally registered to run for president. It was more last time. It was upwards of 2,000 this time in the last cycle. I have a really interesting book about some of them from last time. But there's only like 4 that are really going to appear in writing on ballots.
The ballot, that's right.
Yeah, there are some
so
aspects.
Kanye, who you're thinking?
I don't think Kanye is going to appear on the Illinois ballot. I live in Southern Illinois. I don't think he made his way onto the ballot. And, that's okay. Kanye is a whole podcast worth unto himself. A guy who fights so hard to have his name on the ballot, even after he said he didn't want to run to be president anymore. What a train wreck. You can't look away. Yeah, but hey, he's got like $700 million and I got to go to work in the morning. So maybe he's the smart one.
Maybe he's onto something. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are aspects of all 4 of the major candidates, Hawkins, Jorgensen, Biden, and Trump, that are somewhat appealing, but of course you have to make a decision. I know who I'm going to vote for unless something drastic comes up. I have my mail-in ballot sitting on the table back there. I'm going to wait about 1 more week and then mail it in. The only reason I haven't done it already is a lot of people asked me last cycle, like, how the heck could you possibly be undecided? And I'll say, first of all, I'm not undecided. I was uncommitted.
That's as you told me.
Which means that I don't like either of the major candidates very much, and my opinion could change if new information came out. And oh, by the way, the Access Hollywood tape that made everybody hate Donald Trump so much with the locker room talk, the grabbing women inappropriately, that was after today in the last election cycle. No. The anniversary of that is tomorrow. So
is it tomorrow?
I think it is. So October 7th, it might be the 9th. It's an odd number, less than 10. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I still remember where I was. I sat down and I said, it's over.
Yeah, I think it's the 7th because the debate was on October 9th, I think. So it was only a couple days before the debate. Obviously, all the people that were on stage with me at the debate, we had already been security screened for
Yeah.
weeks and everything. It had been
Yeah.
pre-selected for a long time. They didn't just grab us all up off the street the day of the debate. So
Yeah.
that was new information to us.
Mhm.
A lot of folks that were on the stage would have answered differently about who they were going to vote for or how
Yeah.
committed they were to who they were voting for because of that new information.
That was
And the
a historical one for you to be able to attend too.
yeah, that's why, like, if you think you won't have the opportunity to vote in person, or if it's not safe for you to do so, or if you're afraid your vote's not going to be counted because you don't mail it in early enough, there are some states, by the way, where your ballot has to be received by election day, not postmarked by election day. So
Yeah.
make sure you know the rules in your state. That's very important. So if you have any doubt at all about whether your vote can be in on time or whether you get the opportunity to vote, by all means, vote now. Vote early, in person, or by mail, whatever you have to do. If
Yeah.
you're lucky enough, like me, where you live in a place where it just has to be received by election day and you have a little more confidence that you're going to get your opportunity, maybe wait a couple days for more information to come out unless you're really locked in with your guy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely wise. Well, can I ask you, is it one of the two main candidates that you're going to be voting for?
Oh, I can't even tell you that. I mean, it will be
Yeah,
somebody
I figured
whose
Bill
name
Maher
you've
couldn't
heard
get
of.
it out of you. There's no way I'm going to be able to.
No,
well,
nothing
okay,
about you personally. I've never told anybody who I voted for except for my wife, and she doesn't care.
She's like, why are you telling me? It doesn't matter to me. Of course, I'm here begging. With last question, with the town hall coming up, what do you think would be some important questions, or if you had the chance to ask them this time around, what would you ask?
Well, I would ask Donald Trump why he believes that he only has to be the president of the red states when there are so many Americans in blue states. I live, by the way, even though I'm relatively politically moderate, I'm slightly left of center on the more libertarian side. Small government, big personal liberties.
Yeah.
I live in one of the bluest of the blue states. Do I not count as an American to this guy? It's insane.
Yeah.
So I would ask him why he feels like he only has to be president for half of America and why you've got to kiss his ass all the time in order for him to govern you fairly. That's ridiculous, dictatorial bullcrap, and I hate it. I would ask Joe Biden, like, Vice President Biden, you've been in the Senate since my dad was in junior high school. What about your record, which includes things like the 94 crime bill, the war on drugs, the advocating for increased civil asset forfeiture, the voting for the Patriot Act, the proposed ban on encryption that he did in the early 90s, the weakening of bankruptcy protections, the refusal to sign Medicare for All despite a near 90% approval rating for Medicare for All in his own party, and the extreme curtailments he proposes on the Second Amendment. All that in your record. Why do you expect me to believe you're going to do something different now? Why do you expect me to believe that you're going to be a champion for minorities and underrepresented people now when you haven't been for the last 50 years?
Yeah, well, those are good questions. I'm looking forward to seeing what people bring to the table. I mean, it's definitely such a crazy time. I mean, even just the fact that they're still having it with Trump's health right now, it's just pretty wild. Will definitely be interesting, and to see if we have any more Ken Bones that come into the mix.
I kind of hope not, and not from like a
you want to hold that title,
not like a jealous way, like, oh no, I'm so unique and amazing. I'm not. Internet personalities pop up and disappear constantly, and it does not matter. But this election is such a circus already. We don't need to pile on to that anymore.
Or maybe we need to laugh.
I'm kind of glad that I didn't get invited back to any of the debates. Thank God the Commission on Presidential Debates realizes that this is enough of a dumpster fire without inviting the clown to come and stand in front of it and sing Pagliacci.
Well, I think you bring some much needed comic relief. Well, great. Well, thank you, Ken. With that, I'm going to give it back to Reed, and he can pull if we have any audience questions. And if not, Reed, you can pipe in with a couple of your questions.